Now, Ghana's annual consumer inflation rose to a new 21-year high of about 40% in October, and that's after a month of rapid currency depreciation deepened an economic crisis. The West African nation is grappling with a surge in the cost of living that has now led to protests in the country's capital. To discuss this and more, I earlier had a chat with Jonathan Offei-Ansah. He's the founder of the Africa Briefing magazine, and started by asking him how Ghana got to its current economic crisis.
Okay, the problems actually began when the international credit agencies like Moody's, Fitch, and S&P downgraded Ghana's credit rating to junk status, right? So this prevented the government from raising about 2 to 3 billion in euro bonds, required to service its debts and shore up, the city, which actually caused the city to go into a free fall. Okay, and again, we talk about a small country like Ghana of about 35 million people, with a bloated government. We have about Ghana has about 120 ministers and more than 10,000 presidential staffers. Okay, and again, tax mobilization is very low. Imports are low compared to the high level of imports.
Well, there'll certainly be changes and reforms, because we know the country is currently in negotiations with the IMF, and they're trying to secure a $3 billion economic support package. But of course, there have also been protests on ground against more loans for Ghana's government. So how important is this IMF loan deal to securing Ghana's public finance and, of course, its economic future? Is it a sure thing at this stage?
The government, didn't have any choice but to go to the IMF. Like I said earlier, because of downgrading Ghana to junk status, the government couldn't raise the loan to service its debts and show up the city and do many things. So the IMF, is a last resort for the government. So it has no choice but to, it had no choice but to go to the IMF and start negotiations for this $3 billion bailout. I believe that the bailout will be forthcoming, but there will be a lot of stringent conditions attached. And again, when people protest in Ghana, calling for no more loans, that kind of thing, they are talking about not about IMF loan per se, but about the kind of loan, the euro bonds and so on and so forth. That's Ghana, where the government has borrowed so far, and which have been tainted by alleged corruption.
Now, it's interesting because there are also calls now for President Nana Akufo-Addo and his finance minister, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, to step down. What is the likelihood of this happening, and how much uncertainty is this all causing on the political and economic fronts for Ghana going forward?
Number one, Ken Ofori-Atta is Akufo-Addo's cousin. Okay, and well, most Ghanaians blame Ken Ofori-Atta, the finance minister, for mismanagement of the economy and therefore bringing Ghana economy to the state it is currently in. Okay, and again, I'm not sure Akufo-Addo will sack his cousin, and Akufo-Addo himself too. I'm not sure he will resign. If Ghanaians want to see Akufo-Addo out of office, they will have to wait until 2024. Anyway, he's serving the final term. I mean, he has to run for 2 terms. He's his second term, so he cannot run again. So if they want him to leave before the elections, then it will have to be up to Parliament to impeach him. And I don't see that happening. But when it comes to Ken Ofori-Atta, I mean, almost all the government parliamentarians now are calling for his dismissal. And they came to a compromise with the government saying that, look, the president had implored on them to wait till the IMF negotiations are concluded. So I believe that after the conclusion of the IMF negotiations and the bailout, starts coming in, I believe the whole Parliament are going to insist on Ken Ofori-Atta being sacked by Akufo-Addo. And look, the jury is out. What Akufo-Addo will do is yet to be seen.